What's up? What's up? So I have Shelly Bell. I was just with Shelly with Black Girl Ventures by a project that they're doing, but I want to just start from the very, very beginning because I want to know everything and I want everyone to know everything. So I always start by asking people, what did young Shelly think she was going to be when she grew up?
Oh, that's so good because I do something similar when I interview people. That's
For
dope.
real?
So I was going to be a pediatrician,
Really?
and then I was going to be a lawyer because everybody's like, "Oh, you talk a lot. You should be a lawyer." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna be a lawyer." Yeah, that was it. I saw like people like I don't know, maybe something on TV about like pediatricians or whatever, and so I
Yeah.
was like,
So
"Oh,
you
that's
wanted to be
dope."
a doctor or a lawyer, the things that all kids would have typically wanted to be, but then you took a whole different path. You started your own foundation, but I don't even call it a foundation. It's a movement. Like, Black Girl Ventures, y'all are doing a lot. So tell me about how that passion began, because I know it probably began way before you actually got it off the ground.
I mean, no, really. So,
No.
I mean, in terms of like my passion for business overall started before I got it off the ground, but starting Black Girl Ventures was literally like somebody needs to do something, right? And
Yeah.
so I'll take you through the story though.
Yes.
So in um I had gotten laid off twice and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna start. Well, the first time I got laid off, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do because I've lived a lot of lives. I was a K through 12 teacher for a while. I've done performance poetry like full time. Had my own
Wait
art
a minute.
organization. I actually before I recorded a poem before you came to the set, but like you'll see we do a poem
What?
before the competition every time.
Okay,
So
so I'm so in. You don't even know this, but people watching know. I'm so into that, like spoken word, poetry, all of that. So I'm like mind blown right now. So
really, you know what? I'll tell you what. When we get to the end of the interview, I'll perform it before we leave.
yes,
How
that's
about
what I was going to ask. But okay, let's get it. Perfect, perfect, perfect.
okay, cool. So ultimately, I worked in workforce development. Like I've been, like I said, I lived many lives, done many things. Um, Worked for the patent and trademark office, all those things. And I got laid off from this workforce development job that I was on. And so I was like, I'm gonna just do poetry for a year. So I did. And then by the end of that year, I was like, you know what? I want to launch a business. And I told my partner at the time, like, hey, I want to launch a business. And they were like, nah, I don't think you should launch a business. That's not going to be stable
And
enough.
what
Like,
time frame is this? Like, what year is this?
this is 2014.
Okay.
All right. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm about to be a wife. Like
Yeah.
maybe this is what people do, you got to compromise. So so I didn't start a business. I got a job doing some patent search work. Like I worked for the patent and trademark office before. I hated it every day, but I thought I was faking it really well. Until one day, my boss called me in and he was like, listen, you're amazing, but this is not for you. And he laid me off.
Wow.
Great boss, but I was devastated. I went home and I did the only thing that a person that's been laid off twice could possibly do.
What?
I called California Psychics.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my
I know
God,
you lying.
oh my God, what's happening to my life? No. And the woman, she told me, when you find the thing you want to do, the money will come and you're not going
Mm.
to be with that partner. So literally within 2 months, my whole life flipped upside down. I threw all the furniture out of my living room. My partner threw them out too. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna start a business. Now, mind you, I had no idea what I was gonna do.
Oh
So
my
the
God.
first thing I did was I built a teepee in my living room.
Hmm.
Now,
Why?
for the record, I have to say I do have Native American roots, but
Okay.
I'm not
Thank
trying
you for
to.
saying that.
Yeah, I do. Um, I mean, and like that's a whole conversation around like Black Native American mix. But so I built this CP and everybody thought I was crazy. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, I'm gonna put this CP in my living room, I'm gonna rent it out. And honestly, my thought was I had a few thoughts behind it. One, if you're a woman that's traveling and
Hmm.
you need a place to stay, because I had done traveling as a performance poet. And I was like, oh, hey, like men could literally be on stage and be like, I need somewhere to stay tonight. And the women would be like, okay, like I can do that. I'm a
Uh-huh.
woman.
That's true.
Right. So
Yeah.
I also was thinking if you're a single parent and you don't have an extra room, you actually can't make extra money off of Airbnb. So this could be possibly be a way that you can make some extra money if you're a person who had a home without an extra room, right? So these were all of my thoughts: providing safe space, extra income, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a teepee, right? And no, and this at this
A
time,
teepee in the middle of your house.
TPs were not on the market at this time, by the way. So now you can go and like to Target and buy like a kid TP. That wasn't the case in 2000, and this is now 2015. So the beginning of 2015. So I'm like, okay. So everybody's like, you're crazy. Nobody's gonna sleep me. I'm at like the hardware store. I'm gathering wood. I'm drilling. I'm
Like
like,
you built it.
how do I drill a hole? I didn't even know. So I built a TP, put it on my Airbnb, super successful. We had so many people that wanted to come and stay. I let one woman come. After that, I quickly realized what the meaning of safe space. Like people use safe space all the time. But if we both walk into a building and it's structurally sound, and technically it's a safe space, safe space really means safe people. And
Okay.
that like no matter where you are structurally, if there's no safe people, empathy, redemption culture versus cancel culture.
Yeah.
If that doesn't exist, then technically it's not a safe space, right? Because this woman, she was cool, but she was going through things with her husband. It was a lot.
Oh, so she wasn't the safe person. You were safe, but she wasn't necessarily the safe one.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
That's right.
Then what
So
happened after that?
I'm like, okay, what else am I gonna do? Because this ain't it. so,
So you had,
so I'm like,
wait a minute, you had one person come.
one person. And I said, this ain't it. At that time, I had a 1-year-old, so I have 3 children. But my little one was 1. She's trying to get in the TP with the lady. The lady, she talking to the kids. Like it was a lot. It was a lot. She in my living room. So I said, okay, this ain't gonna be the thing. What else? What other skills do I have? And at a previous job, when I was teaching, I learned how to print t-shirts. And so I was like, I'm gonna start a t-shirt line.
Yeah.
The first line was the LGBT line. It sucked. Nobody bought it. The design, it just didn't work.
Oh no.
So I was like, okay, what else can I do? I was on the phone with a printer and I said, you know what? It's made by a Black woman. I should put that on a shirt. And so literally I went to the computer and I designed a made by a Black woman logo to pattern after the Made in America logo, put it on a shirt. Everybody loved it. My mom gave me her some of her retirement money. I used my tax return to buy my own machines. So I launched Made by a Black Woman and Misprint USA at once, a print shop for merchandise, and then the t-shirt line. And then we started going up and down the East Coast. We did big events like Afro Punk. We did like women's empowerment events down in Atlanta. We did like everywhere that we could go. I kept shirts and a table in my trunk. Made by Black women shirts in the trunk, popping them up everywhere. And we were, I was learning. I learned so much. I learned so much about supply diversity. I learned so much about manufacturing. I learned so much about design, chemicals, material, just like all these things that not only were like I was getting customers for Made by a Black woman, but through my print shop, I started printing for like small brands, small
you were teaching
festivals.
them what you learned basically so that they could launch their own line of whatever they wanted.
No, I wasn't teaching nobody. I was printing for other people.
Oh, you were just printing now. Okay.
I was printing everything I could print. Okay. It was.
I love that.
And then I started working with like Amazon and Google and like doing print things for them. So I would print like for Amazon, we have a big AWS conference. I would do all the t-shirts or for their diversity fee.
So you were doing well.
So I was good. I leveled up, launched the business, leveled up. I'm good. I'm making it happen. And then the news came out. Black women are starting business at 6 times the national average and receiving less than 1% of venture capital. And honestly, my thought was like, okay, well, let's do something about that. So the first Black Girl Ventures event, it was Black Girl Vision at first. It was a brunch, 30 women in the house in Southeast DC. I put it up on meetup.com. People came. I ran the whole thing like a poetry slam because that's what I knew. I wasn't even thinking about Shark Tank or any of that. I was like, okay, everybody put their, they paid to get in. We voted with marbles and coffee mugs. So if you like that person, you put your marble in their coffee mug. And then I gave the money back out to the winner in cash. I really didn't think anything about it. but people
That's
liked
good.
it. So I said, let's
That's
keep doing
lit.
it.
Yeah, that's lit.
So we kept doing it. And then I was like, okay, this might be something. I did a call for a volunteer team, pulled them together, and we went into this is now going into 2017. So
Uh-huh.
going into 2017, we had made Essence Magazine holiday gift guide for the baby, like infant onesies were made by Black women. So the business had leveled all the way up.
Yeah.
And then Black Girl Ventures is starting to kick off, and I have this 7-person volunteer team. So we go in, we're like, we put together like an application process and like we just made it more formal. I
Mm-hmm.
started going to co-working offices because what would happen, and this is like interesting from a diversity, like equity and inclusion standpoint, is that at first it was just like Black women talking to Black women.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we're not gonna give people money this way. Now, don't get me wrong. Not
Yeah.
saying that like everybody, we do
No,
need
I
those
know.
like spaces, those ERGs, things like that. And I'm like, but how can I maximize the level of money we can get? Money is green. I need more money for more people for these
Yeah.
women on stage. I also saw it as an opportunity to say, I need people to understand that we can put the people who have the need on stage and you all can be a part of the change that needs to happen in the world, which is just like we need more of those kinds of efforts.
Well,
We tend to
you basically were introducing, now we all know the term ally, and you didn't want to limit basically. So you kind of were introducing the term ally in real life form, basically. That's crazy.
That's right. That's right. 100%. And so I changed the tagline. So the tagline was like, um, everybody can attend, but Black and brown women will win. And so like that was just like a
Ooh,
signal out to let people know that like you can all come, but I can't give y'all money because I'm giving money to my
that's
people.
so
But
good though. Like
so,
that's catchy. You know that's catchy. Like when I heard it, I'm like, oh yes, that's it.
so then we moved into like different co-working spaces. We work, make offices, and then the audiences would grow. So we would have like anywhere from like 85 to maybe like 100 people some at some of the events. And then I actually landed a contract for me doing some work with Google, doing some community activations.
You
And
be saying
so
the craziest companies. You said Amazon, now we working with Google, baby. Like, don't just grace over that stuff like Afropunk. You're just naming out some very large things. Like, I have to like when I hear it, I get hyped. So I'm sorry, continue. But okay, Google. My man.
no, I appreciate that. I appreciate the call out to kind of slow down too, because I
Oh,
think that sometimes, you're just moving. You're trying to just get things done. You're trying to
yeah.
like make it happen. And especially like in this case, like being a leader and only even like being a leader in a Black community, there's a big responsibility there. And so like for me, I'm just always like, I just gotta move. I just gotta keep it moving, keep it going, keep it, working. But I appreciate that call out. So yes.
Yes, Google, the real Google. Yes, continue with Google.
So at this point, I'm working with Google and we are I'm doing like community now. It's called the Google Digital Coaches Program. They scaled it now, but I was one of the like original 8. And I was that for DC and I became like synonymous with Google in DC. So people were like, you need to in the community. It was like, you want to work at Google, you need to talk to Shelly Bell. And that was actually, I have a lot of gratitude for being in that space. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I scale Black Girl Ventures through this? So I decided I'm gonna give Black Girl Ventures 3 months and I'm gonna give it all of my energy. I put my print shop to the side to
Wow.
give Black Girl Ventures 3 months to see if it will work.
So
And it
you
took
put your
off.
print shop that was booming, business was booming. You saw an opportunity, you put it to the side, and you was like, all in 3 months time frame. Like that's setting a goal, setting a time frame. I love it. Keep going, Shelly. I'm loving everything about this. Keep going. Because like
100%. And
I always
so
talk about risk reward. Like that's a big risk you took. Like the company was rolling, but the reward is big as well. So keep going. I'm loving this.
it was a big risk too because my contract that I had from Google wasn't, it was nice. It was a decent amount of money, but it wasn't like it wasn't what I was making with my print shop.
Right.
But I knew that like I wasn't passionate about having a print shop, but it's a money making business. Like it's like a pizza shop. You could pop up a pizza shop next to a pizza shop. People gonna eat pizza.
Yeah.
Same thing with printing, even in a pandemic. people still need gifts, corporate labeling, like law firms. They like are really big consumers of like everything with their name on it. Like somebody's
Yeah.
printing all of that stuff, right? Down
Yeah.
to like reflector jackets that you see construction
Oh,
people
you
like
was making now money,
somebody
okay?
is doing all of that stuff. Okay.
Woo.
So, being in that world was really interesting, but it's hard work. Like I've
Yeah.
actually literally in the lab, like physically printed those things myself. So it is work until you get to a certain place where you outsource most of it, which I
Yeah.
eventually got to. But anyway, so decided I'm gonna put all my energy in BGV. During that 3 months, we landed a partnership with Google Cloud for startups, which Google, like big
Shelly,
corporation.
you're not about to keep telling me these big companies like, okay, you just said you're going to give it 3 months, and within 3 months you landed Google. I want people to understand something too. Just because you work with one sector of a company does not mean it will transfer over and you will automatically get to work with every sector of the company. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, she worked with Google before, no, it doesn't. Companies don't work like that. They are sectioned off. So you have to reintroduce yourself to every section. I'm sorry, Shelly, continue, because I don't want people to think that that's an easy connection. It doesn't work like that with companies.
100%. I'm so glad you said that because you know what? If I think about it, so my secret sauce is relationship building. Like I'm in these meetings talking to them like I'm talking to you. Like I'm
Yeah.
straight up 100 all the time. Like it's just like, hey, yeah, I'm thinking this. How y'all doing? Like I'm just being myself.
Yeah.
And honestly, like authenticity is a hack because people don't expect it
Yeah.
in these environments sometimes.
My jam. That's my jam.
Yeah. I have a lot of gratitude for the people that I've been able to build relationships with. Like Erica Banks, who was at Google at that time, Jason Scott, who's a real MVP behind like how far we were able to stretch out within Google and having those internal champions. And I always say this, even during the pandemic, even after the murder of George Floyd, like all these pieces that have come together, corporate employees are the real MVPs. So
Facts.
shout out to any corporate employees who are listening, these ERGs, the Black employee networks and things like that have really been the like driving force behind how Black Girl Ventures has really been able to thrive inside these corporations. I would say, us being able to get into a corporation and stretch out is almost like a secret sauce of ours. We did,
Yeah.
same thing with Google, same thing with Visa, same thing with Nike, like absolutely 100% correct.
Kelly,
Nobody.
no. Same thing with Google, same thing with Visa, same thing with Nike. I'm trying to like this should be, if you are not inspired yet, get to it, because this is crazy. You're building something from an idea. You're touching these major companies. I'm sorry, continue. You've got a hold of Google now in the 3 month. I'm sorry. Those are major companies. What?
Yeah. It's a little, it's you making me like think about it, right? Because like usually
You
I'm just telling the
should.
story and people like, oh yeah, oh wow, okay. And so I'm just like breezing through the story, but you're
No, because
actually
I'm
making
in
me,
this space, so I know like
yeah.
it's not as easy as you make it easy, because you talked about your secret sauces relationship building, but this is not easy. I don't want people to think that they gonna just up and start and get a hold of Google, Nike, Visa, baby. This ain't normal. What's happening here?
No,
Crazy.
it's not easy at all. I mean, it takes some it definitely takes some work around. It takes your energy, let me say that.
100.
And I think we don't talk about it enough when it comes to being a founder, or a leader, or whatever you're working on. It's just like energy preservation.
Definitely.
Um being able to build relationships authentically and showing up as yourself. Sometimes
Yeah.
I even feel like maybe not showing up as yourself don't is something you can kind of hide under or like push an image out, but like showing up as yourself means that there may be some critique on yourself, right? And like not everybody wants to hear that or take that feedback. I had a boss, a former boss, that drilled into me like all feedback is positive, all feedback is positive. And I think sometimes feedback has a negative connotation around it. And so
Or it's called
um
constructive criticism in sports, where I'm in the sports world. So if you tell me only the good stuff, I ain't gonna get better. That's just how I feel. So I always welcome that constructive criticism, because I know it's gonna get me to the next level. But let's hear about Google. I want to hear everything. Let's hear about, in the 3 months, you snagged some big fish. You only had a 3 month window.
I
So
only
you
had a
were
3 month
working.
window. At this point, it was just Google.
Okay.
So, in this 3 month window, Google, I stretched out into another part of Google. Well, with that, that's how we scaled across the country. So from there, we started doing these events inside of Google offices across multiple cities:
Mm.
Atlanta, Chicago, New York. We're still doing them in DC, but then it was Detroit. So we were able to go to different places, Baltimore, with the help of Google. And so
And y'all was doing the same type of thing where it's the competition, you run it your same way. It's just now it's just expanded.
that's right. So at first it was you pay at the door, and then everybody gets in, watch the competition, and then I would split the capital with the founder that won. But when we went into Google, I couldn't charge people to come into Google.
Oh.
So we had to become a Google charity. Oh, this makeup is killing me. We had to become a Google charity. And then we started doing where you could vote with your dollars. So
Mm.
that's when we first started testing out. And this is like at this point, mid 2017, going into 2018. And so we started testing out this like this like vote with your dollars model. So you go in, women would pitch on stage, and then you could say who you vote for. Like you vote for this pitch, you vote for that pitch, and then you could donate directly to that pitch that you favor. And then we grant the capital out to those founders. Behind the scenes, we do have a revenue generator to keep us going. So like it's a 70-30 split with the founders. They get 70% of what's raised for their company, and then we get 30% for
That's
keeping all the
good.
operations going. And part of this was about like, could I build something that was really influential enough to bring a group of people into a room, have them watch Black women pitch their businesses, and then actually go into their own pockets and actually help fund these businesses? Because if the venture capitalists weren't going to do it, if
Yeah.
the banks were slow to change, and if all the systems that be were not going to open up for us, then I know that civic engagement and activating people was going to be a way.
Come on,
So
somebody. That's smart. Because you know you couldn't like change the big system ones right away, basically. Like, so you was like figuring a way around it. Like, we can still get you some money. We might not get it through these systematic ways, but there's other ways. Love it. Love it.
that's right. And I mean, it's built off of Black history. So in the early 1900s, Black people migrated to Harlem, and then white landowners raised the rent. And so Black people threw what's called rent parties to help people stay in their homes. And I mean, it wasn't like, oh, just some old raggedy basement party. Like it wasn't that. It was, you had like Fats Waller, Langston Hughes. People used to get dressed up like to go to these parties that essentially were funding, like paying people's rent. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it
I've
came
heard of
from that.
those before. I think people were still doing them in college when I was in college. So it's
That's
a
right.
it's a movement now. So it's a real thing. But that's crazy. So you get to Google, now you have the space and you're building something. What happens after that?
So I look at it like 2016 was like a pilot year. It was like a let me test it out. And 2017 was like becoming more valid and solid. So we do that. We're running it. We're just doing it across different line. And at this point, I'm learning what it means to enter a new city, because there's certain cities across the country that you don't just walk up in. Like you don't
Yeah.
just walk up into Baltimore and be like, oh, I'm about to do something. Like,
Oh
nah,
no. That's where my sister lives. You don't just walk up in there. My
nah.
sister lives there.
Baltimore, Philly, Detroit, Chicago. You
Yeah.
don't just walk up in there and be like, oh yeah, we're doing a cool thing. Everybody come. It's like, who you? What high school you go
You
to?
need to
Who your
know
people
somebody that
is?
knows somebody that can connect you.
Okay. So I started to get get an understanding of like, oh, like how do we build relationships with people on the ground, and the power of
Mm.
that, and being like, because even being in DC, people always come here thinking they're saving the world. Like, oh, like we got this thing, and like all the community organizers, we're here and we're like, yeah, we kind of been here this whole time. Thank you, but no. And I don't want to be
Welcome.
that. Yeah, I don't want to be that person. So it's really important to me to build relationships on the ground with other ecosystem builders, other people who are doing this work, other entrepreneur support organizations. Like that has always been, even if we didn't partner, just us knowing each other was always really important to me.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope.
So come, now we're like 2018, and we're starting to like we're getting our footing, and like figuring out like exactly how we're gonna do this thing. We roll into 2019. We continue. Like now, I'm like, I got it. We get the rhythm.
You got a system.
It was at this point it's just like me, an assistant, and my mom and another woman volunteer that would travel. So we would go to different places, pop up these events. I mean, we were rolling. Like sometimes we would like go in, pop up, shut down, roll out. Like it would be like
Dang.
my mom and I would fly in that night. We would have the event that day, that night. Next morning, come back home. We drive
Is
up to
there
New
much you
York.
had to travel with? Like, did you all like what about branding and stuff when you're moving from city to city? Was it just you just basically like popped up and just made it happen, or did you bring branding with you? I'm just curious because like that's crazy that y'all were just in, out, in, out, in, out.
No, great question. This is what I learned from doing the print shop. So what I learned from vending, because all of that vending taught me how to pop them, like how to pop up an active full activation and shut it all down. Because
Uh-huh.
when you're vending, you're moving and shaking. You got to
Okay.
know how to pack everything,
Yep.
and you got to be able to get to a location. All you got is a blank table. You got to be able to get to that location and make it look like you've been there all day.
Exactly.
So you got to
Exactly.
be,
Like,
you
how did
know,
you do that? That's why I'm like, how are you doing this?
that's such a great question because nobody's ever asked me that. Okay. So while vending, because we were going from so many cities, what we learned is like we would travel with, while vending, like during the t-shirt line,
Mhm.
we would travel with suitcases of t-shirts, tablecloth, mannequins,
Oh,
and we would have actual banners, right? And
okay.
then a particular kind of table setup so that you knew people would be able to walk up, see what was available, look at the sizes they want, all of that, and just move. I mean, really, and this is why even before like connected to Nike, I would say like when it comes to being in business, I'm an elite athlete. When it comes to ecosystem
Come
building,
on
I'm an elite athlete because we running reps. Like
now. Okay.
after so many reps, you like, okay, boom, got that. I know how to do that.
Doing it.
I can roll into any city, pop up, be fully branded, and have people ready to engage with us. So I just took that skill set right into what I was doing with BGV. So I knew from that experience exactly what I needed. I needed
Mhm.
X amount of banners. I need a person. So it's crazy. I never talk about all of this one. So I
I
love it. I
forgot,
love it. I love
I'm
that you
like, I'm detailed. So I'm
I
like,
love it.
they moving right now. Like this
I
is
love that you asked me this. So because people are always like, well, how do you do it? What's the secret sauce? This is actually me unpacking that. So this is how I think about things. What kind of experience can I create for you or for the people who are coming? When I think about event activations, I think about everything. I think about how you're gonna get to the bathroom. I think about
mm.
how close you are. I've actually had to have debates with like some of the venues because I'm like, no, these chairs will not be this far back. Move these chairs up, pull them together, and they're like, oh, well, people not gonna be able to get to the bathroom. That's exactly what I want. I don't want them to get up. I want them to sit down and I want them to stay seated until I'm ready for them to get up. Right. Like all these things about the way you set up a venue creates behavior.
Love this. I'm
Um
like
and
sponging right now. That's what I call it. I'm sponging right now because I mean that's the like experience. So you're talking about experiencing it, and as like a consumer, I'll remember certain experiences, but you can forget a whole lot of different things. But if you go somewhere and you see, dang, it's branded. Oh, this was lit. It was turned in there. Boom, you got them. That's how like I could see a BGV event going because it's like you've already thought about all of that. It's crazy.
when we're able to do it live again, you gotta come. I mean,
Yeah, oh, I'm in there. I'm in there
yeah,
because we
because
didn't even
it
talk
is
about what you've done. I'm letting it get to the end where then you can talk about what we
okay.
just did. But yeah,
Live is a whole different experience because we're doing call and response. We're like, it's not like an average business event because mind you, like I come from hosting art events.
yeah,
So like when I was hosting, so I would say, I guess, even prior to like any of this business stuff, when I was
mhm,
just hosting art events, I was hosting like 5, 6 events a month. And sometimes like 2 or 3 in a week. So like
yeah. That's
hosting
it.
was my jam. Like getting on stage and like managing the energy of a room was my jam. I've hosted like on big, like with thousands of people, outdoor stuff, down to like small, like, 30, 40 people stuff. So like for me, being on stage is like that's my jam. I love it. Like I'm here for it.
I'm be
So
calling you for an event. I'm be calling you, okay? Because I want you to curate those vibes of what you're talking about. Yeah, that's lit.
I mean, it's all about the energy. Sometimes people don't even know why they had a good time, and it's because the people who designed that thing have thought about how you feel or how they want you to feel and the energy that they want to put into that event. So all those things matter. So here we are, we're traveling across the country, we're doing this event. When we roll into 2019, I'm like, I need my own tech because I don't have anywhere where people can actually vote with their dollars. I'm a computer scientist. So that's what my degree is in. So, and I used to teach computer
What,
science to high
Shelly?
school
Like
students.
what, Shelly? Like what? Like what?
So, so I'm like, you know
A
what?
poet that is a computer? Like no, because I don't like you have to put the things together. These are
That's
two different
true.
worlds. You're a poet and then you're a computer. What did you call it? Scientist?
Computer sciences, yes.
Like those are polar opposites. That's why, but people, if you know, you know. If you know why that's wild, then you know.
I honestly think like I would attribute my success to having this kind of balance of right brain, left brain, because
Hmm.
sometimes like artists are just fully artists and it's just like I'm creating and I'm out of here and
Yes.
they're losing money. They don't have a lot of businesses sometimes. It's not to say all artists are that way, but sometimes.
Yeah.
And then as a business person, sometimes you could be fully all the way to the other end of the spectrum where you're just like stuffy and cold and just like get it done mode. And that could also like both of these people see success.
Mm.
For me, I've always had this balance of just like I needed to be creative and I needed to be business oriented. I needed to be organized and I needed to be like I don't really like a lot of structure. I guess that's my art side. But at the same time, I'm all about creating a really great process. If you
Yeah.
got a process, you can scale. If you don't have a process, then that's when you're a little bit like overhead heavy, things like that.
Hmm.
So
Thank you for that.
I'm like, hey, we need a tech product.
Uh-huh.
So we got our first in like 6-figure capital from the Marion Kaufman Foundation, who in my opinion, like really gave me the opportunity to pilot going deeper into cities. So people were like, I was like, listen, as we got popular, people were like, come to my city, come to my city. I'm like, we can't go to all these cities. I need to figure out how we scale. So I designed this change agent process where like we would train people on the ground and
Mm.
then we would teach them how to do the competition for themselves on the ground. A lot of people cautioned me against that because they was like, you don't want people to steal
You
your
don't trust
idea.
people with your product.
And I said, well, listen, if everybody started doing crowdfunded pitch competitions, then imagine that I can say the immense amount of impact I've created, and now I can back up and do something else.
See,
So
that's the thing though. You're not scared to pivot. You made the TP, went one customer in, pivoted. You will pivot, pivot, pivot. So that's why it's not scary to you because you are the process. You said if you got a process you can scale, you are the process. So you ain't worried about ever scaling. You'll just create something else. That's crazy.
that's right. I will definitely invent as many
Right.
times.
Definitely.
So we landed on so because of that capital from the Kaufman Foundation, I launched 5 women across 5 cities: Miami, Chicago, no, not Chicago, I'm sorry. Miami, Houston, Durham, North Carolina, Philadelphia, and Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay,
So we
Alabama.
in Alabama.
Okay.
We recruited them, but to your point, I see where you're going with it. The reason that we chose these areas was based off of demographics, based off of whether or not the local governments had made a statement about what they want to do for small businesses and women-owned businesses, and just like where our audience was. So with Birmingham, it was one of those places where the local government, city government was making statements and wanting to really maximize business.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, if they're gonna do that, I don't want Black women business owners to miss out on that because
Yeah.
of the like not being connected or lack of infrastructure, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So here we are, 25 women, trained them, ready to kick off, started working on development for my tech product. So my tech product that we have right now is called Raisify, formerly known as
Razorfy?
She Raise. It was known as She Raise.
Uh-huh.
The new version of it is called Raisify. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
RAISIFY.co.
Okay.
And so but it was, you vote with your dollars on the back end. The founders can see it's transparency. So they can see like all the money they're raising, the fees that come out, how much they're going to get in it. And they can get comments on their pitch. Their videos live there. It was a way also to manage our alumni because most accelerators and incubators manage their alumni right on their own sites. Where if you have lots of activity, like imagine like a Techstars that has like literally like bunches of cohorts over the course of years,
Yeah,
they're
of
trying to maintain all those images of people like on their websites.
course.
Plus, like, no, there wasn't like a really great community activation for like how to fund businesses. So like this platform was solving just that.
Great.
And so we launched it. I piloted. Now, keep in mind, this is the end of 2019. I'm not knowing that the world is about to shut down.
Oh, look, I forgot. I forgot about that plot twist. Dang.
So we piloted in Atlanta and Detroit with a tech product. Worked well. So I'm like, yes, we're on to something. Thank God, because the world shut down and we were ready. Because we
Yeah,
had a
you were
tech product.
already basically launched. Like you were launched when it's yeah.
That's right. So it's easy for us to pivot to virtual because now people could put their pitch video on the site. And so now we could have the live event, which was like through like YouTube. Then you could go watch the pitch videos individually. People could campaign and you could donate. So it
Right.
was perfect, you know. You
Yeah.
know, and like any tech
Pivot.
founder, you have to work out your kinks, but we were ready.
Yeah.
And so we did our, and it's funny because like South by Southwest, we do South by Southwest every year since 2017.
Like what, Shelly?
And I was gonna do South by Southwest 2020. This before they made the decision to shut down, but my spirit was like, my intuition was like, don't do it. But I said yes. But
You said yes, but you was feeling no on
I
the
was
end.
feeling no, but I said yes. And then after Twitter pulled out, we pulled out, and then the whole thing shut down right
Wow.
after. So I was like, you got to follow your gut. I mean, I am fueled by intuition. Like that is how I run BGV,
Same.
100%.
Same.
That's
Like
that's where the pivots
get,
come
I
from.
call it a feeling. I'd be like, if I get a feeling, I follow it. Look, that's why I opted out. Like I follow my gut. So yeah, no, we are here with that for sure.
That is how we run BGV. Like all intuition. That's where those pivots come from. Cause like
Yeah.
I started to like visualize or feel the change coming. I'm like,
I love it
let's
because
make
that's
this
the
move.
real thing. People don't because you can't measure intuition. Sometimes people have a hard time like believing in that as a process almost. But I firmly believe in intuition, and so your intuition told you it ain't it for South by Southwest. This is 2020. So what's the next? I know what happens in 2021, but is there anything else that happens in between that
Ah,
before you get to that stage?
oh my goodness, it's nonstop. We rocking and rolling. Okay, so stuff is always happening, Renee. Right? So, um, things are starting to shut down. We immediately pivot to everything virtual. We launched a virtual community called BGV Connect. Our Facebook group was already growing, but BGV Connect is a paid community. We launched virtual co-working. Our launches for the cities got shut down. So we were able to launch in Houston really big and Philly really big. The other three cities got shut down. Durham got shut down twice.
Why? Like what
So
shut them down though?
the pandemic.
Oh, okay. Like
So
basically couldn't
so
move around the same. Okay, okay, got you.
yeah.
Got
Well, for Durham, North Carolina, first it was like snow randomly. Like I'm from Durham originally,
you.
so
Yeah.
like snow hit. Nobody wants to move. Literally, like three flakes fall, and we ain't used to that. So we like,
Oh
like,
my
oh no,
goodness.
I'm not coming out.
Sounded
Right.
like Atlanta.
Right,
Sounded
right. And so then the pandemic hit and we still couldn't launch Durham.
yeah.
So, and we never fully launched Durham. Like I want to make sure that as I tell the story, like I talk about like where the pivots are and where the like sometimes or like things don't work all the way out like you want them to. And
Mhm.
where you have to learn from them. So like the other four cities launched and were rocking and rolling. Durham never really got off the ground because the women that we had recruited, the pandemic hit them really hard. One woman,
Yeah.
she has her own business, an amazing dance studio. They had to shut down for a while because of the pandemic. Another woman worked for Duke University. All the pivots that they had to do at Duke for all the things they were going through, she just was
Mhm.
overwhelmed. We just took note that like it is better for us to say this is not the right time for this city
Right.
and try to support, cheer on the women founders as much as we can and like focusing on doubling down the cities that made the most sense.
Yeah.
So we moved, all the other cities, they rocking and rolling. They're doing content. So we also, Google at this point we did Google for startups. So again, this is another part of Google. So like this one is like I've worked with probably like at least 3 or 4 parts of Google at this point.
Shouts to Google, man. Let me just, now that this has happened on multiple times, shouts to Google for putting their dollars, their resources where their mouth is. A lot of companies talk about wanting to support small businesses, Black owned businesses, minority businesses. Google throughout is all throughout this story and at inception. It's not like they see you were blowing up and then they were at inception. So shouts to Google, man. I love to see it.
That's right. So we're rocking and rolling on content. I mean, we were doing like events every week, which is like because when we would bring the women together for virtual co-working, we were hearing the stories firsthand. So it would be like, oh my God, I lost 2 months of customers in one day. Oh my God, the event industry is shutting down and I'm an events person. That like
Yeah.
all we were hearing the stories firsthand, but then, it's like this like spark of just like amazingness happened where like they started peer mentoring each other.
Oh,
It wasn't even about us anymore. We had just created a container
yeah.
and they started peer mentoring each other, helping each other out. Hey, this resource just came out. Hey, go, do this.
You
Hey,
built a
y'all want to work
community.
together
That's
over
a
here?
community.
It really like just started them really working together. And that's the beauty of that. Like creating that container for them to exist in. And then working with other
You
partners.
created a whole community for Black women in that space, in any business space, to help each other, pull each other up, use each other's resources. That's like only a dream that everyone tries to do. How did Nike come into the equation?
So on the intuition point, right? Maybe like before the pandemic hit, my board chair, she's like, we're gonna get money from Nike. And I'm like, what?
Like, that's a
Like,
wild statement.
like we all but like I said, like even me, her, like we're like I have a very unique um situation. I'll say that like we don't run like most nonprofits. My board chair might as well be my co-founder. Like we're so lock and step in that way. My board is so active and like I created this board this way. Like, listen, I'm gonna be who I am, and I want you to be who you are. Don't hinder my creativity, and like let's work together on changing the world. Like that's always been my thing. Like,
Legit.
how do we work together on changing the world? But like I've heard horror stories about people in their nonprofit boards and their corporate boards, and I'm like,
Oh yeah, me too.
like I don't want that. So I set the tone early and they rocked and rolled with me and they're amazing folks. And we have just been, this journey has been dope. So she's like, we're gonna get money from Nike. I'm like, okay. She sends a like blank, like a cold email to somebody at Nike. And
What?
we didn't hear from anybody. Like, it was a bit of a, nothing happened. So time goes on. I don't know, after the murder of George Floyd, there was a bunch of, I call it the awakening. There was a bunch of like people just waking up to realities that they had not faced before, and assumptions that they had made. And, there was just things about that time frame
Yep.
that people were just like, oh my God, what? And corporations were responding left and right. I mean, left and right. I mean, it was surreal. Like we were ready. Like
Yeah,
we were on
that's the key
calls.
part. You were ready when
We were
they
on
came.
call sometime from like 8 a.m. to like literally like 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. Because mind you, we could catch people from both coasts.
Yeah, yeah.
So people, they're like, we want to meet with you. Can we talk to you today? We want to give you this? This was for the first time in fundraising. I barely had to introduce my whole team or myself. I barely had to talk about what I did. They like, we looked at all your materials. We looked at your website. We looked at your social media. We want to work with you. Right. It
Your
was
work was speaking for itself at that point.
surreal. Okay. Shout out to like the folks at Diageo. Like we have gotten money from several parts of Diageo, several other brands within it under the
You
Diageo umbrella.
like y'all killing it. That's all I can just say. Y'all were killing it.
I'm so thankful. Like we have like the Johnny Walker brand. We have like Ciroc, Smirnoff. We work with all of them. And then like we have the teams
The
like the
Rock,
Visa.
Smirnoff. Come
We
on.
have like the Visa team that came to us, Warby Parker, which is one of my favorite teams to work with.
Oh,
Like
yes.
just really amazing folks that were like, we looked at. Here's the thing that I want to be clear on though. It was not magic. Like this is one of the things I loved about the We Play Real anthem that Nike just put out that I was a part of, because it's like Black Girl Magic is great for camaraderie. But
Yes.
at the end of the day, we work hella hard to get where we
Yeah.
are. And so it's not overnight. You know, it's not just popped out of air. Now we all of a
Well,
sudden.
and you even said she sent out those cold emails before y'all even had those connections, before anything even happened. Y'all was already doing the work. So now it's basically the work that you manifested, like it's coming back now. Like that's what that was. So no, it's not a that's so I said nothing about this story. That's why I want people to understand. It might seem like, oh yeah, this happened. No, nothing about this story is easy. Nothing about this story is normal. This is like all the blood, sweat, tears, energy that you talked about, all of that started to just come back. That's what I make sure people understand, that because we're so instant gratification nowadays. It
That's
ain't
right.
like that.
Yeah. So the first call, so when Nike reached back out to us, it was like, it was like, oh guys, like they reached out to us. Somebody have a call with them. It was, like we listen,
Nike, just do
but
it.
you know what I mean? Behind the scenes, like we're having all those moments. It's like, oh my God, Nike just contacted us. Oh my God, this brand, like,
Crazy.
but when we on the calls, I be playing it real cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes,
Yeah.
we do, but in my spirit, I'm like, ah. So
Facts. I'd have
so
been screaming too.
so we get on a call, and honestly, from the jump, it was a yes. It was just more about like, let me learn about you. Right. It was not, I didn't feel like it wasn't, they have always been, was then, and have always been very open to what I want to do. One of the questions I get a lot is like, are these brands letting you do what you want to do? All these brands are absolutely letting
Amazing.
us do what we want to do. And so I want to like be clear on that, where they're not dictating what we have to do deeply. Like, of course, we have things we agree on. They're like, hey, we want to do this kind of thing, but they're not dictating to us anything that we are uncomfortable with. We're not stretching our mission to try to accomplish what, like, we already had a product that was so aligned with what everybody wanted to do.
Yeah, you just had
It
to
was
make
just a
it make
matter of
sense for
visibility.
both, basically.
That's
That's
right.
you're not
So
like you didn't even have to pitch yourself, basically. You had to figure out how can we make this come to life. That's the best question to get.
I mean, one of the things that I'll say to founders out there, like, and anybody's working on building something, is like a couple things that we're also really great at. We're really great at content. Like
Mm,
BGV, me, I'm a content creator too. So like my content, the BGV content, we're really great at creating content. Really
right.
great at the branding, like really great at the media. So we do a lot of media. I do a lot of media. I do a
Yeah.
lot of media runs, a lot of media
Amazing at it. I'm
appearances.
sitting here talking to you and I'm like, hello, this is amazing. Like I already know that this is a good episode off rip. It's because of you. So amazing. Like this is so many nuggets.
Yeah, yeah. I mean
And so
the
tell me,
media.
so because I was at the pitch, like, so I got an email. Listen, I'm gonna tell you how crazy it was. Let me tell you from
Okay,
my
tell me how it happened from your
yeah,
end.
let me tell you
Okay.
from my end. So we had the draft happening on April 15th, which was a Thursday. I get an email. Well, I don't get it. My manager gets it. I think it might have been Tuesday night. They hop on a call on Wednesday and it's Nike. And I'm like, well, hello, Nike. And for backstory, I was signed with Nike for 7 years. But again, this is a whole different section that's talking to me. So I'm like, well, what's good, Nike? And they're like, hey, we know you're in the tech space and all this, and we have an event that we think you would be perfect for. And this is crazy too, because I'll tell you, when we first saw each other, I'm like, dang, she looks familiar, but I don't know where I know her from because we had only been on one event. But when I saw your name, I was like, okay, that looks familiar too. And they said, like, it was a pitch competition, and instantly I was like, I know we're not talking about something Shark Tanky because like I love Shark Tank. And so then they were like, here's the kicker, it's happening on Friday in LA. And we were like, oh my gosh, like what? And I was like, we got the draft on Thursday. I knew I had a speaking engagement Friday morning. So basically I couldn't fly Friday morning. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. My manager's like, you can't do it. And I'm like, no, we're doing it. What are you talking about? Like, we're doing it. He's like, you can't do it. Literally, you have the draft, you have a speaking engagement, there's no time. I'm like, what if I flew out right after the draft? And so basically Nike got me booked. They had to even book my my PR and my makeup lady on a different flight because there were barely any flights available. And long story short, I get there and the vibes were unmatched. Tell me about how that came to be. I mean, that was for me. I was like turned, I was like excited, happy to be here type. Like it was lit, but the vibes really were on point. Just the guests, it just felt right.
So it's interesting because, all right, so the arm that we got the money, the original commitment from. So this going back to like stretching out within and corporations. So after we had the conversations about like the initial money and the initial, it's like, okay, well, how much, what would be realistic for you, right? And I think this is one of the things that I want to talk to founders about is like a lot of times people are like, give me the 5 million, give me the millions of millions. You got to be careful with that because as a nonprofit, you got to spend your money in a certain amount of time. You don't want to take on levels of capital that will sink you. And you want to be mindful of your spend, your burn rate, your return rate. Like you want to be mindful of your business operations when you talk about raising money, taking on capital in any business, and especially in a nonprofit. So it's like, boom, we settled on $500,000. So Nike committed $500,000. Kroger also, like all in the same time frame, committed $500,000 to BGV. So this was from
Excuse me, Shelly. What? Did we just add up $1 million? Like I'm just saying, what? Unbelievable.
Yes. So
like, come on, Black Girl Ventures. Like, come on, Shelly B. Like, that's not normal.
so this was okay. What we agreed to do was a fellowship because BGV, we have capital, community, and capacity. Capital, we do the pitch competition. Capacity, we have the fellowship program. And we also have another training that comes with an accelerator training that comes with that. And then we have the community pieces, which is our paid community. We have the Facebook community. So what we're doing with Nike is we're doing a 9-month fellowship in Chicago. They're helping me launch this next part of the tech platform, which is now called Razorify. And then we're doing 3 murals across 3 cities with Black women leaders on it with them as well. And so that was initial like $500,000 commitment. Boom, we're gonna do these things, and that was what I was executing on. And then we got a call from the team that's working with us saying, "Hey, listen, the business side wants to work with y'all. They saw what y'all are doing. They want to work with you."
I'm sorry, come again. You'd have been like,
right.
Okay, bring them on, baby. Let's go.
Right. And so they like, look, they want to do this All-Star Weekend activation. They want to do this, and this. And so I'm just like, I'm like, oh my God, they want to do what they want to do now. But from the jump though, I'm like, okay, can I get a commercial?
Yeah.
I remember the first. I'm like, can we get joint swag? They don't play with it.
You gotta ask though.
You gotta ask. So the first call that we got on, amazing. One is surreal because I'm sitting in a meeting and the Nike North America team, some of the team is presenting to me about what they want to do with me.
So now they're pitching you. So instead of you pitching them, Nike's pitching BGV.
That's right. And they're showing and like all this, like the deck is like, and then we're gonna put you here, and then we want to activate over here, and we want you to do this, highlight her, and then we want to put you on the. And I'm like, and I'm just like, oh my God, right? Like I'm like, oh my, like I don't even know, right? I
can't even imagine what that would be like. That's crazy.
Crazy. It was surreal. Now I'm playing it cool though.
Yeah, you gotta dance. I'll call it dance around the kitchen because that's what we did when I was young. When good things happen, you dance around the kitchen when you get home. But while you're there, you're like, yeah, that looks good. Yeah, yeah, we could do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's literally what it was like. And but I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I'm pretty sure one of those meetings I got like teared up. Like it was surreal to be watching it. And then when it all like really unfolded. Yeah. So where I met you on the Highlight Her panel.
Yep.
So also I want to talk about like how it feels to like be in this arena, in the sports arena. And
you were never like the athlete. You're not
right. And I'm kind of like the outsider almost, like I'm on these calls and like, it's like, oh, like y'all are literally like champions. You know what I mean? Like WNBA champions, like won this title, that title. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there like,
Killing it.
I'm gonna
Champion.
hold my own because
Champion.
I'm gonna hold
Okay.
it. I'm gonna be me, but I'm still sitting there like, oh my God. So when I first saw you, I was like, first, Asia has a whole statue. And I'm
Like,
like,
and you heard me on the call, like, Asia, you got a whole statue out here, like it's crazy.
and then you with the Atlanta Dreamers and that whole story, and I'm like, oh my God. But y'all were so cool. And I
Yeah.
think like I've been on so many different calls and roundtables with all kinds of people in all kinds of realm, all the way from Beyonce daddy to like I've been all kinds of panels with people.
Shelly?
And I'm sitting, but y'all were like just people. It was just so like, oh yeah, what's up? Like, oh hey y'all, like we about to get, and
It's
I was
that
like, oh my
authenticity.
God.
Remember, I said that's my jam too. Like, I just come and I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna be excited because I'm around a bunch of. See, you seen it from the other way. I'm like, look at these entrepreneurs. Like, I have a foundation of my own. BGV is like the foundation of a foundation, and then we're all doing the same thing for each other, which is kind of crazy in itself.
And it was awesome. And so I loved your energy from the jump. So when we had talked about doing this pitch competition, immediately I was like, I want to get Renee. I wanted to get you and Asia, because Asia started a candle company. And so I was
Yeah.
like, that'd be dope. She's like at the beginning of her journey. So like that'd be dope to like have both of them. But because the W's kicking off, like we couldn't get Asia. And at first they told me they couldn't get you. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, boo. Right. So we kept working through people, different people, trying different people. And then finally, our contact came back. She was like, we got Renee. And I was like,
Yeah.
so
It was like I told you, it was crazy. My manager's like, you can't do this. I'm like, I'm doing this. And he's like, you can't do this. Because it's crazy because getting to LA, as people know, that takes up 8 hours of the whole day as is. And so it was a beautiful thing. I just can't say it enough. Like I can't wait for it to come out. When it comes out, you got to give us a couple clips that we can play here so that you can see. But it was a beautiful thing, not just the people that were there, the champions, as you called us, that were there, and you hosting it. That was great. But the people that were pitching, the entrepreneurs, it was just an amazing experience. And before we end, I have not forgotten that I want you to recite. That is what I've been waiting for the whole time because I'm so like, thank you for telling us all, like the transparency that you gave us. I'm telling you, this will help so many people. But before we end this, can you recite your poem? You are a professional traveling poet. I can't believe it.
it's a ring. It's 3 to 4 feet taller than reality. Its ropes are red, white, and blue. Its platform is blank, stretched canvas. Commentators say it's built for a man. Promoters say there's room for my competitor and I. There's gloves and coaches and centers and punches, strategy, knockouts, blood, sweat, and tears. Entrepreneurship is a boxing match, but we, the women, know how to stay light on our feet. We slide through insecurity. We shuffle through sexual harassment. Me too. We dip and block and duck and land. Then suddenly, the predefined role of woman calls our name. Wife, feminist, mother, bitch, grandma, cook, auntie, babysitter, nasty woman, pow, right in the kisser. I lose balance, fall, face against the platform. My ego crack when I realize that my male competitor has more mirrors in his dressing room. Commentators say, you're a woman. This is not your place. The referee counts down. You don't belong here. Stay down, he shouts. VCs fund people who look like them, and I don't look like them. I didn't learn how to box in school. My parents are not boxers, never learned how to coach or train. My life is just a corner. The referee shouts 8, 7, 6. I breathe. This game is rigged. but fuck that. I'm the only species on earth that can bleed for a month and not die. I'm badass. Even if I bow out and get a corporate job, I would still make less than the man lording over my remains on this platform. 5, 4, 3, get up, Shelly. Pin a Nike commercial to your memory. Remember that you don't get in where you fit in until you get in, because fitting in is about character and getting in is about access. You're already in the match. Get up. Bite the hand that feeds you bullshit. Burn the bridges you never want to cross again. You got this. Slide, duck, jab, land. And remember, entrepreneurship is a boxing match, and you know how to stay light on your feet.
Woo! Vodka Flames, let's go. I love that kind of stuff. You better. Shelly Bell, thank you so much for sharing your Black girl ventures on us. Man, I mean, I hope you're welcome. To anybody watching this, you're welcome. Shelly, thank you for joining remotely, Renee.
Woo. Thank you for having me.